I'm going to introduce you to when sometimes you have variables that are in that position of being subtracted. So here, let's say I did negative 20 minus W equals 60. We'll work with numbers that are easy to do here. Okay, so our whole objective is to work on getting that W by itself. So what I have to realize is really that negative sign is with the W. So I'm going to show you a couple things and then you can kind of decide which one you're more comfortable with. So I still, if I want to work, hey, I always have to do the opposite to get rid of the number that's with it. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite of negative 20, which would be plus 20. Okay, that's gone. Plus 20. Okay, so now when I subtract this out, I end up with a negative W, and yes, the negative is still there, equals 60 plus 20 is 80. Now, here's the thing. We can never have a negative variable. Okay, so if you end up where you go through and if you're subtracting the variable, there's actually a second step that you'll have to do, and that's where you're going to go ahead and do the opposite to both of your numbers or your sides. So I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite by taking it times a negative, which is going to cancel it out, and then take this times a negative or add a negative. So really we end up with W equals negative 80. Okay. Another step that I've used on this one before with students is, I'm going to erase these steps, but just leave my answer portion. Another thing that we've used in the past, so negative 20 minus W. Is I've also taught students that whenever that variable is in this position right here and you're subtracting, you can do what they call a flip-flop method. Okay, because ultimately that's what we did when we had that negative W equals equals 80. We flip-flopped the negative to the opposite sides. So another method is you could go through and you could do a flip-flop, and by doing that, we would now look at it like this, negative 20 minus, but you just flip-flop the number and the letter. You don't take the symbol with it. So if we flip-flop, it would become minus 60 equals W. See how when I put these together, same symbol, find the sum would be 80, apply the same symbol, so we would get negative 80 equals W. So you end up with the same on either of those answers. It's just whatever you're more comfortable with. If you like the flip-flop method, you can do that. If you prefer to just always think I'm going to do the opposite and then get rid of the negative in the very end, you can do that also. It's not very often as we get further into more complex problems that you're going to end up with just a negative. Sometimes yes, but not always. Okay, so let's try another one. So let's say I have 20 minus Z equals, let's do a negative 44 here. Okay, so if we go through and we work through the opposite, so let's go ahead and isolate this. So right now I have a positive 20 on that side. So we're going to go ahead and do negative 20 to cancel it out. Negative 20. Okay, we end up with a negative Z equals, same symbol, find the sum. So 44 plus 20 is 64. Apply the same symbol. So I have negative Z equals negative 64. Now to get rid of the Z, I'm going to have to go ahead and go times a negative, or to get rid of the Z, to get rid of the negative, which those will cancel out, right? So then I'm going to have to do times a negative again. Oh, two negatives make this Z equals positive 64. Okay, if you use the flip-flop method, the one thing that you're going to have to remember is although you leave the negative here, you take the negative with the number because this is really a negative 44. So if you do that flip-flop method, it would have looked like this, 20 minus, and then you flip-flop, so you would take that negative 44 equals Z. See how we have two negatives there? So it ends up becoming plus 44. 20 plus 44 would still get us to that positive 64. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give you one here. I'll try and not work too many integers into it. so that you can practice one of those two methods. So let's say we have 40 minus m equals 54. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and work your way through to find out what m equals. So remember, you're isolating by doing the opposite, or you're doing the flip-flop method. So go ahead and pause the video and work your way through either doing the opposite with that integer of 40 or doing the flip-flop method. You should have ended up with m equals negative 14.